It's that urge to step outside and explore new terrain, to build sounds and to put them together. It's to constantly question what we think we know, and what we think we hear. This is 2,000 Miles, my second solo acoustic saxophone album from Relative Pitch Records. A lot of my compositional output comes from the groups I play with regularly. So, as a band member, co-artistic director of ensembles, I've had opportunities to write for and receive feedback, to workshop my compositional ideas. And this is with players who I know very well and whose musical instincts I understand and can write to. So in a way, it's sort of symbiotic. My compositional voice is shaped by these performers, and yet when I write for them, I'm expanding and shaping their sound worlds. So for a group like Hypercube that performs a lot, it can be an incredibly fruitful arrangement for a composer. Each of these groups is comprised of unique personnel. The artists all have various backgrounds and experiences, so it follows the working environments and processes will vary from group to group. Thing and Why, for example, is made up of composers who all perform professionally as instrumentalists in their own right, as vocalists to some degree. We're all improvisers. And the most important thing about that group is that everyone is willing to try almost anything, and that's what defines it. Now combine that with 15 years of working together, and you have what I would call a musical family. Repurposing objects, redefining instruments, finding music, finding phrase in unexpected places. That's a lot of the work in the initial creative process. And then you get the secondary process of adapting these ideas, mapping them to performance practice, to the things we already know. And this drives the exploration of sound, but also the definition of performance. My work in Pope Bama, which is an experimental duo with composer, percussionist, electronicist Dennis Sullivan, really involves this sort of layer cake approach to creation and performance. The initial layer is really this improvisation, sketching, working together, finding sounds, and then coming up with the notation of those sounds and honing those through extensive rehearsal and through very detail-oriented work is the second layer. The third layer then being this point at which we move off the page again through a sort of quasi-memorized yet improvised final performance, which is a process that by the end there's a certain virtuosity that exists. Writing for saxophone quartet was really where things got started for me compositionally. It was the first ensemble I played in as a young person and started to really get the sound of that chamber ensemble in my ears. And playing with New Thread has really allowed for this deep exploration of our instruments. We have opportunities to workshop and premiere works by other composers, which is just this playground where new ideas are floating around at all times. So I look at it as like an intensive on my own instrument. And when you know an instrument so well and you know a group of instruments and an homogeneous sound so well, what it does is it creates that basis with which to build on. And so when I think of saxophone quartet, I'm constantly thinking about how to make it larger, how this sound that I know really well would work with these electronics, how it would work with instruments that we add to it. Creates even a higher ceiling. So I grew up here in Western Canada, right near the border of Alberta and Saskatchewan. And I come back fairly regularly. It's a place where I'm comfortable. I don't do a lot of individual residencies, and I think part of that is preferring to just be in an environment that is familiar to me, and where I can be surrounded by nature in this way, but also by family. But what it does is it allows for an environment to focus in on singular projects and to do so in a way that's paced and that's healthy. To take care of my creative side mentally by giving it space to just sort of be at one is really important. this is where I come from, and this is where I return to. It's really an exercise in real-time composition, totally free improvisation at least. And for me, it's not only an opportunity to experiment with sound textures, but also with form and narrative. I think of it sort of as a practice storytelling. You know, what have I said? How have I said it? How can it be repeated? How can it be emphasized? And most importantly, how can it be reframed? I think that pivotal moment of understanding where the listener is based on what you've said is a way of always keeping a moment fresh. And having that space to play with expectation, because you've set something up to create expectation in the first place, that's a very fertile place for me compositionally.
Okay.
So it's like one texture that doesn't end, it just keeps going.
Mm-hmm.
So and these things are just happening whilst. So they're so this moves into the trill.
Yeah.
And then that's just like the same line. I don't really think of my voice as having a particular style or definable in a particular way. I think my sound palette is a constantly evolving library where information and ideas are constantly populating this library, and rather than sort of being defined by this series of projects on the output side, I sort of define my own compositional voice as being this organism that's growing, that is, you know, a body of work or a body of ideas. And so these snapshots that become these individual projects and these individual pieces can really vary widely from style to style. You know, an earlier work is going to have less to draw from just because that library is smaller. But those still exist as important snapshots in that time frame. I live and work in New York City. It's a vibrant community of artists and innovators and thinkers. And in the new music scene, really, I don't know that I'd be able to do what I do anywhere else in such a permanent way.
Is there something you want to tell me?
Is there something you want to know?
The scene is full of presenting organizations, opera companies, ensembles, and just individual artists who want to make music and want to creatively expand, the communal vocabulary that we have.
And you're trying so hard to just be you. Sorry, I just don't understand. I have to ask you again. Where's Mom? Did you tell her I was coming home? I told her. What?
It's also this huge access point for theater, for dance, for film, for sibling forms of art making that to take in and be part of also expand our musical fabric. And that's really invaluable.
And?
Travel is an important part of my work in writing. I travel a lot for music as a performer and composer, and I write almost constantly on airplanes and in airports, on trains. Travel is its own place where time is suspended, and that's a really fertile ground for me compositionally. Working with Pope Bama and Dakota Ensemble to create fight songs was a culmination of many things at the highest level. The idea of creating an evening-length experimental work that involved theater, that involved collaborative composition, that involved incredible directorship and performance personnel on both sides, that took place at the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg. March 2020 was really right before everything shut down. writing theatrical chamber music or music theater, I kind of whittle it down to accessing that performative instinct within performers, how they present. And, every performer is different. So when I'm writing, I'm thinking a lot about the mannerisms, the presentation, and trying to write to their skill set, to their instinct as performers, as they're willing.
Wait for it.
It's already inherently interesting to watch performers perform on their instruments. There's the visual aspect of mapping sound. There's the expression of the music, the sound with the gesture, the physical gesture, with the facial expression with the performer, and with the that energy that the performer exudes naturally. And so, really writing performative or choreographed or theatrical elements on top of that is, in a lot of ways, just an added bonus. And as long as it's natural, as long as the performer can feel it deeply and interweave these ideas and these motions and these mappings into their natural performance, it tends to read well, it tends to work.
Testing vocal mic.
30 seconds.
Test 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 1 2 1 2.
More light on Emily, please.
Bubblegum, bubblegum, bubblegum. Bubblegum, bubblegum,
Anna,
bubblegum.
Sarah, positions. Jennifer, be yourself, please. 10 seconds. Big breath, ladies. Live in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Hot Takes from Cute Kittens. Pretty cool cats. Whoa, pump pussies. Bad bitches. A week for me as I'm thoroughly exhausted after a long flight from the kitchen.
And due to the lockdown and cancellation of live performance over the past few years, a lot of my work has shifted, and that includes work created in the online platform from the get-go, and also work that previously was intended for live performance that's been adapted. So video has become a large part of my output now, and working in a new medium like this results in different aspects coming through and different ways of telling stories.
No way. What? No way.
Okay, here we go.
This is our day job.
Thank you for holding. My name is Shale. Please address me and all future correspondents as and to Dragon. What is your emergency?
A lot of my compositional output is also collaborative. I work with many groups in writing music together. We all meet, we all share ideas. It's this organic process of sketching, workshopping, solidifying ideas, understanding and changing that process as you go, playing the room. Collaborative composition is really undefinable. It's one of these things you have to do to understand, and it's always different. It's always changing. While there might be less overall individual ownership, there's also there's more gratification at the end. There's more surprise, and being an experiencer of art is a large part of being a creator of art.
Did you say elderly spouse? I'm sorry. You said hurricane. I can help you with that.
And going into the E earlier, the stuff here, I wouldn't even worry about the exact notes there. But this needs to be the height of the cello.
Yeah.
So that it almost it just almost sounds just like a gesture. It's not really even it's the ultimate moment is when the performer feels confident communicating your work. That moment comes when there's a certain amount of comfort and confidence that comes from practice and trained technique that the performer's honed over years, and combined with a certain amount of risk in which the performer is reaching and pushing for. That unknown, that risk, provides the performance with an internal energy, and that's also communicated. Finding what that proper level of push and risk is really where you'll have the most successful communication of your ideas. So when working with performers, it often means trying to pinpoint that threshold, that point, that place where they'll go with you. The opportunity to work with people to come up with a process over time that involves regular meetings, involves workshops, involves multiple heads in the room. To me, that's where the magic really happens.